My name is Sofia, and I was 16 when my parents decided that our life needed a fresh start. That fresh start meant moving 3 states away from everything I knew and into a house that felt wrong from the moment I first saw it. It wasn't old or falling apart. In fact, it was one of those big modern houses with huge windows, but those windows didn't let in light. They felt like empty eyes staring out. We moved in during a cold, gray September weekend. Boxes were piled everywhere, smelling of dust and old memories. My room was on the 2nd floor, overlooking a thick line of woods at the back of the property. I tried to feel excited, telling myself this was an adventure, but a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. The unsettling feeling started small. The first night, I swore I heard my name whispered right outside my door, a sound so faint I thought it was just the house settling. I opened the door. The hallway was empty, lit only by the faint light of the full moon filtering through the high window. Over the next few weeks, the incidents grew. I'd be in the kitchen alone, and the heavy back door would click shut even though I knew it was locked. I'd be studying in my room, and the shadow of someone standing just outside the perimeter of my window would flick by, too tall to be a person, too quick to be a bird. I started to check the locks obsessively, double-checking the back fence line. My parents, of course, were no help. "It's a big old house, Sofia," my dad would say, not looking up from his newspaper. "It makes noises, you're stressed from the move." My mom suggested I focus on making new friends, but they didn't see the little things, the way the milk carton was always moved 2 inches from where I left it, or how the mirror in the downstairs bathroom was always tilted slightly toward the ceiling. Someone was in my space. Someone was watching me. And it wasn't just watching, it was testing me, letting me know it was there. The climax of the stalking came on a Tuesday evening. I was home alone. My parents were at a welcome dinner hosted by a new neighbor. I was sitting on the living room sofa pretending to watch TV, but really I was listening. The house was dead quiet. Then I heard it clearly, a shallow, raspy breath right behind the door leading to the unused laundry room. I felt a surge of cold fury mixed with terror. I wasn't going to live in fear anymore. I grabbed the heaviest object I could find, a brass fireplace poker, and slowly, silently crept toward the door. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pushed the door open fast. The room was empty, but taped to the washing machine was a single, crudely drawn picture of my face with excess over the eyes. Below it, written in thick black marker, was a single address, 14 Old Mill Road. This wasn't some ghost, this was real. This was a person, a deeply twisted person who wanted me to find them. The rational part of me screamed to call the police, but the reckless, terrified part of me needed to know who this was and why they were targeting me. I had to end the stalking myself. Slipping out the front door, I ran into the cold night. The address led me about 3 blocks away into the oldest, most dilapidated part of the neighborhood. The houses here were small, overgrown, and mostly abandoned. Finally, I reached it, number 14. It was a rotting wooden shack, half hidden behind a wall of overgrown ivy, silent and black against the pale moon. The front door was hanging slightly open, swaying in the faint breeze. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the crickets. I told myself to leave, to run, but my feet carried me across the dead front lawn. I pushed the door open. The interior was pitch black and smelled overwhelmingly of mildew and dust. My hand swept the wall until I found a light switch and flipped it. Nothing happened. I pulled out my phone, turning on the flashlight. The light showed a narrow, empty hallway leading to a larger room. I took 1 step forward, then another. The air felt heavy, like the entire house was holding its breath, waiting. I rounded the corner into what must have been the living room. It was completely empty except for a single, small wooden chair placed squarely in the center of the room. It was clearly a trap. I turned to run, but it was too late. A heavy, thick hand slapped over my mouth, the smell of stale smoke and damp earth flooding my senses. Another arm wrapped tightly around my chest, pinning my arms to my sides. I screamed, but the sound was muffled against the rough cloth covering my mouth. I thrashed violently, kicking back, but my attacker was immensely strong. Within seconds, I was thrown onto the cold, bare floor. I felt something rough and scratchy being looped around my wrists, pulled tight until my hands felt numb. Then my ankles were tied together with another piece of thick rope. My attacker moved quickly, efficiently, and silently. I couldn't get a clear look at their face. They were wearing a dark hood, and the room remained in shadow. I was left alone, bound and helpless, lying on my side. I could hear the person moving in the next room, dragging something heavy. Panic threatened to overwhelm me. I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe. I have to escape, I have to. The rope around my wrist was old and fibrous. I started twisting, digging the rough material against the sharp edge of the splintered floorboards. The rough fibers began to break, but the rope was digging painfully into my skin. I twisted and pulled with all my strength, not caring that blood was now seeping onto the wood. Finally, with a sharp snap and a searing pain in my wrists, the rope broke. My hands were free. I immediately started working on the thick knot at my ankles. It was much harder. I heard the dragging sound stop and the footsteps returned, coming closer. There was no time. I ripped and pulled, sacrificing the skin on my hands until the knot finally loosened just enough. The dark figure stood in the doorway, blocking the exit. They saw my freed hands and let out a low, disappointed grunt. I scrambled up, dragging my still-tied ankles forward in a messy hop. I used my hands to launch myself past the figure and into the hallway. I didn't care about noise. I kicked the chair over, making a loud crash. I threw open the front door and tumbled out, landing hard on the dead grass. The figure was right behind me. I heard heavy running footsteps and another guttural grunt. Pain shot up my legs from the twisted ankles, but fear was a stronger engine. I hopped, dragged, and crawled until I reached the street, then somehow found the strength to untie the last knot and break into a frantic, uneven run. I didn't stop until I crashed through my own front door, slamming it shut and throwing every lock and deadbolt I could find. I sank against the wall, sobbing, my wrists raw and bleeding. When my parents returned an hour later, I told them only that I had fallen and hurt myself. I never told them about the house, the stalker, or the terrifying escape. The next morning, I checked the spot where the drawing had been taped. It was gone. I still live in that house. I still check the locks. And every night when the moon is full, I can feel those empty eyes of the windows watching me. I escaped that night, but the terrifying feeling of being hunted, the sense that someone is still out there waiting, never truly leaves. I learned that some doors, once opened, can never really be closed.